open the pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler Podcast. I am your intrepid movie-exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, I am going to bring you my review for everyone's favorite, another holiday movie as we rush headlong into the Christmas season. This one is entitled Nutcrackers, and it is a Hulu original film directed by David Gordon Green and starring Ben Stiller. And as I mentioned, this is a holiday movie, and I know how much you'd love to hear reviews for those movies at this time of the year, so I cannot wait to get to this episode. But before I do, let me go ahead and bring you a word from this podcast sponsor. That would be yours truly. If you could be so kind as to whatever you're listening to this podcast on, if you could please rate, review, and follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff, I would greatly appreciate it. Reviews help me because they will get the show out there to more people, but they also help me make a better show for you. Plus, it would be nice to get a little feedback from you. Also, you can reach me on social media. I am expanding a little bit, but we're going to stick with this episode. We'll just go with Instagram for now. And that one is at Cinematic Traveler Pod. That way you can follow me and get in touch with me and all that fun social media stuff. Like I said, we're expanding more on that. We'll get into that in the next episode because, to be honest, I didn't write down all the names that I had my other Facebook and all that stuff. I forgot to write the names down. See how well prepared I am here. Anyway, now that I got through that quick, fast, and in a hurry, let me ask you how you doing, my beloved listener. If you are in the United States of America, you are probably a few pounds heavier because we are coming off the Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully you got to eat a lot of food and spend some time with your family and loved ones and didn't go out into any of that shopping mess out there on Black Friday. I don't really know who does Black Friday anymore. I order all my stuff online, so I don't know if is that even a thing anymore. But again, I hope that you had a great time away from work and got to spend it with someone you love and care about. As for me, I'm less said about my Thanksgiving, the better, but I am excited to be talking to you about this movie. I got lucky again. It's another streaming service original. It came out on a weekend when there really wasn't anything going on in the movie theaters, and I saw this on Hulu, and I like Ben Stiller. I will not lie. I'm a bit of a fan of his, so I thought, this might be kind of fun. So let's go ahead and get into talking about Nutcrackers. Before I dive in, let me give you the rules here. Going into my spoiler-free plot review, as a matter of fact. During my plot synopsis, I will be hiding two movie quotes that are either related to the movie or, in some instances, hint, hint, to the stars of the movie, hint, hint. But if you can identify those movie quotes and tell me what movie they're from, get in touch with me again on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. Just DM me, let me know what movie they're from. I will keep a tally of points, and at the end of the month, whoever has the most points will go ahead and let them pick a movie for me to review on the next month, sometime during that month. And it can be any movie, whatever your heart's desire. And we'll get into more of that later after I do my review. But just keep up with that, and I think that might be it. Yeah, all right, let's go ahead. This is my, again, spoiler-free plot synopsis of Nutcrackers. Again, directed by David Gordon Green, famous for ruining iconic horror franchises. But he did get his start in comedy and is best known for comedy, really. Well, it was before Exorcist Believer. But anyway, let's go ahead. Again, I said this is starring Ben Stiller. It runs about an hour and 44 minutes and is on Hulu. I just like saying Hulu. All right, so in Nutcrackers, we are introduced to Mike, once again played by Ben Stiller, who is driving his yellow Porsche from his fancy life in Chicago as this real estate broker to the stars, I guess. He makes a lot of money and he's dedicated to his business and hasn't had time for family and wife and all that. Well, he is heading to the most backwards, desolate shithole of a state in the United States of America, and that would be Ohio. Well, he has been forced to this backward state due to the sudden death of his sister, and now he is in charge of finding a home or a foster home for his 4 nephews. that range from, I think they're probably 8, 9 years old, all the way up to maybe 13, 14 years old. Well, as I mentioned, Mike is a career-minded man who understandably doesn't like kids, and his sister kids are well known in this small town as wild young hellions. Everybody knows the Kick-Lighter Kids. Well, with the help of Gretchen, played by Linda Cardellini, she is the local social worker, they try different, maybe wacky things to find these kids a home. Mike's last-ditch effort, he decides to put on a ballet of a version of the Nutcracker that the boys have come up with, because I forgot to mention it, his sister, she used to be a ballerina when she was younger, and in this small town, she's a bit famous for having this dance studio that everybody loved, and her kids participated, they all know ballet. So they're going to put on this Nutcracker, or at least a version of the Nutcracker for the town, and hopefully, Mike says, maybe someone will fall in love with these kids. However, as he does deal with all this, putting the show together, he starts the bond with these kids, and he forms what I like to think of as a little circle of trust. Slowly the kids awaken a paternal love in Mike, causing him to think to himself, I'm pretty sure there's a lot more to life than being really, really ridiculously good looking, and I plan on finding out what that is. But can these rambunctious kids form a family with Mike? Or will the life of wealth and comfort and no kids and doing whatever you want and just enjoying everything that you've earned in Chicago cause Mike to turn his back on these kids and his family? I will not spoil the movie by answering those questions, but I am going to give you the best review for Nutcrackers on all the podcast universe and perhaps all the universe. I'm not sure how many reviews there are for this movie out there. But you know what? This is going to be the best one, damn it. So diving into the review, for those of you who are new to the podcast, I do break my reviews down into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good is the stuff that I like in the movie. Bad is obviously stuff that I don't. And the nitpicky is stuff that's neither good nor bad. Just things they put in movies, like Hollywoodisms, or just things I pick up in the plot or whatever that make me laugh. And I'm going to try to make you laugh, because if there's one thing I like to do in this world is to make people laugh. And hopefully that is working with this podcast. Maybe 1 or 2 of you, that would be great. Anyway, if you could let me know if it's working, you can always leave a review or get in touch with me. Let's go ahead and get on with this review. I'm losing my mind. So let's start with the good, and this probably won't take long. Starting off, I think this is a good-looking movie. As much as we can criticize David Gordon Green for what he has done to our beloved horror franchises, I will give him credit here. This does make Ohio look good. And for those of you who don't know, where I live in the South, we do not like people from Ohio or the state of Ohio. So, yeah, that did maybe formed or pushed a little bias into this movie. But actually, there are moments in this movie where it's sort of beautiful. They've got, the sunset and sun rising, and they live in a farm or on this farmhouse or whatever. So it's sort of desolate, but you kind of get all of the ambiance of that location with, just out in the fields and all the, whatever. I don't know much about farming, but all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? It does make it look pretty out there. Also, I think there's some creative shots in the movie. It feels like David Gordon Green is putting forth some effort here, at least in that regard, in the filming of the movie, that he's, again, like I said, he's put forth some effort, some attention to detail. There it gets a little bit, I don't want to say trippy, maybe art housey. I mean, it's accessible. It's not like an art house movie, but there are some moments, some shots where you kind of feel him indulging in his creativity with the lens and different shots, or like towards the end, there's a shot where it's sort of Ben Stiller kind of center of the screen, but the background changes in different locations throughout the movie. It's a cool little shot. So, again, I'll give David Gordon Green credit for that. This is a comedy drama. That's what it was advertised as. I thought it was going to be more of a comedy going into it. I'll get to that momentarily. But as such, you would think this businessman coming into this farm in this rural town dealing with these little hellions creates some funny moments. There were a couple. There's a little bedtime story that Ben Stiller is forced to make up that made me laugh. There's also a scene with a baby Jesus from a nativity scene that ends up in a pool. That was pretty funny. It made me laugh. So There were a couple moments here and there where I chuckled. How about that? And my last positive of the movie, and as I mentioned on other episodes, this will always get a positive for any movie, and that is this is an hour and 44 minutes, so it's coming under that 2-hour mark, and it is on a streaming service, so I didn't waste a whole lot of my life watching this movie. However, we'll go ahead and slide into the negative. For an hour and 44-minute movie, this thing drags. Oh my god, I could have swore it was a 3-hour movie. I had to stop it a couple of times, like, how much more have I got left? And each time I felt like I was stuck in this time loop. There'd be 45 minutes left in the movie. I'm like, god damn, is this thing ever going to end? As I mentioned, this is a comedy drama. It is much more of a drama than it is a comedy. The little preview that I watched on Hulu kind of made it play out to be a little more like it was going to be, as I mentioned, a silly comedy that I thought would fit perfect for Ben Stiller, you know, the sort of uptight businessman who's never dealt with any kids having to deal with, especially this group of kids, because they do all kind of crazy shit. So I thought maybe that's where the comedy was come from. Instead, it leans a lot more into the drama, and that really drags this movie down because there's really, you know what, I'll get to that in a minute. It just drags this movie down because, as I mentioned, it sort of sets up early that you think it's going to be a comedy, and then just the moments of drama, and it's just, I'll get to it. I'm kind of teasing what my final verdict here is, but speaking of Ben Stiller, you know, the performances in this movie are okay. I don't think any of them are great. Ben Stiller, as I mentioned, I thought this was sort of right in his wheelhouse, as it were. You know, you've seen him play this kind of character how many times, just this almost fish out of water, kind of dealing things with his comedic timing, and in a way he jokes about things. I thought that was great. But I don't know, he just doesn't really have any energy here in this movie. He's not really, I don't know, he's just not the Ben Stiller you remember from, like, Meet the Parents or There's Something About Mary. It's something like that, you know. It just felt like a flat performance in his regard. It's not terrible. It just feels like it needed more energy or more kick to it, especially if it wants to help the comedic scenes. Linda Cardellini, I think she's a fun actress. I mean, we've seen her in everything from, you know, like Scooby-Doo movies, Grandma's Boy, if you remember that. God, that was such a stupid movie, but she was really good in it. It was one of those stupid comedies that always made me laugh. I also remember her from the TV show Freaks and Geeks. So, you know, she's been around, she's got a lot of cred with me as an actress, as it were, and she's just sort of wasted here in this movie. Again, her performance is fine. It just, I guess we'll go ahead and lean into the next thing. It's just, part of this movie is it's very formulaic. You know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, he's the guy that doesn't like kids and doesn't have time for family, but then these kids win him over, and you know how it's going to end. This isn't like, you know, he's not going to just leave them there abandoned. You know what I mean? You know exactly where this is going. Maybe that's why Ben Stiller feels a little bland or doesn't have a lot of energy, because it's kind of just following the motions here. But they have things in the movie between him and Linda Cardellini's character, I was like Gretchen, where there's supposed to be this sort of, I guess, love interest, but it doesn't feel like it's really earned. It kind of just feels like, you know, Linda's the best-looking woman in this horrible, horrible town in Ohio, that horrible, awful state. She's a Ohio 10, South Carolina 7. I'm just kidding. I think Linda's a very beautiful woman, a great talent as well. I covered myself here, but it's just sort of this forced thing that, I don't know, you don't really buy into that. There's not enough of it to kind of make you feel like, okay, this is going to lead to them getting together. You know, there's not really those playful moments throughout. There's like one scene with them and then just little things here and there. Same thing with the kids. I never really feel this connection between Mike and his nephews here. It just, and I should say the kid performances are fine for what this is, but I don't know. This movie it just doesn't have any heart to it. You know, it doesn't feel like you're really connecting with these kids. You know, there's this whole thing with Mike's sister who has passed away, which could have been an interesting story to follow, that because they have become estranged over the years over some things. And Mike comes back to this town and he learns more about his sister. It would have been cool, you know, maybe if he had this idea of who she became after they stopped talking, and maybe there were some more surprises, and he learns more about that, and that relationship causes him to bond with the kids, or maybe he sees things in the kids. I mean, there's the one kid he kind of sees a few things with, but, you know, that he sees his sister in, you know what I mean? So there's really no connection, there's no heart. It just feels like you're going through the motions. that does, like I said, it's very formulaic, so you don't really feel like by the end that you're, happy that they're going to stay together. You just feel like, okay, this is where we were going from the very first scene into the movie to here. We knew this is where it was going. There were no twists and turns. And the comedic moments, just, there weren't enough of them to keep you enjoying it. It's not, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or anything. There's just nothing comedically to justify it being a comedy, and there's no drama that you're not invested in to, play to the drama side. So really, it kind of fails on all accounts as far as that type of movie. And for a Christmas movie, there's really not a whole lot of Christmas in this movie. I guess the Nutcracker being the play that they sort of changed things to, you could put that into Christmas. But outside of that, this could have been set any time and it wouldn't have felt any different. And there were a few little things here and there where I was like, that really wouldn't happen. I mean, when they first get to the farmhouse, this place is a disaster. It's disgusting. There's like a snake living in the toilet. There's pigs running around, chickens and stuff. They're all in the house. It's disgusting. I'm like, no social worker's going to walk into that and be like, okay, well, we got to wait for your uncle to get here. No, they would be removed from that house very, very quickly. So sliding into the nitpicky of the film. And again, these are things that are neither good nor bad, just a little Hollywoodism, or just, like I said, things I see in the movie that tend to make me laugh. First off, very early on, you see Mike, Ben Stiller's character. He's driving this yellow, brand new Porsche in this, again, it's a rural little town. So he's very, that's very protective of this car because it's expensive and he loves it and all that stuff. Well, there's a moment where, of course, the kids get in the car and they start doing crazy things out in the field with it. I can't help but laugh. That I know car guys. My dad was a car guy. My son's a car guy. If somebody had touched their car, they wouldn't be like strolling out into the front yard like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" They would be in a full sprint to get you out of the car. There's a point where the kid's sitting in the car and Ben Stiller's talking to him with the door open. I'm like, the car guys I know would rip that kid out of the car faster than light speed to get him away from their automobile. Car guys do not fuck around when it comes to their cars. They treasure them more than human beings. So I did laugh a little bit at that. And I did mention this briefly, but there is a moment in this movie that really plays into every human being's horror when they're sitting on the toilet. There is an actual snake in a toilet at a moment, and that made me jump out of my seat because who hasn't had that thought, right? Have you ever not sat in a toilet and been like, what if a snake just popped out from this thing and bit me right on the ass? So when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, it's like the shark in the swimming pool kind of thing where it's come to life. It's true. It's really happening. Get away from that toilet. Throw a grenade in there or something. Get away from that snake. Let's see, my next nitpick. This one I'm probably going to get in trouble for because I know the way the world is. But as I mentioned, these kids put on this ballet for the town. Well, earlier in the movie, these boys are all kind of getting bullied by the rich kids. And at the end, they have the ballet, and everybody's just cheering them on. It's supposed to be this heartfelt moment. But, maybe, like I said, I'm probably going to get in trouble. But I think the way you want to win your bully over, it's not doing ballet in front of them. How about that? At least for little boys. I can't imagine a lot of bullies out there going, I'm going to kick that kid's ass. Oh, my God, look at how wonderful he can fly through the air like the Nutcracker. I love him now. He's my best friend. And this isn't even a nitpick. This is a truism. This is one thing in the movie that's probably the truest thing in the movie. And for anyone out there, especially you young people, if you do watch this movie, and I can tell you to take one thing away from this movie, it is simply this. Boobs plus privates equals babies. So there you go. You learned something not only from this podcast, but from this pointless Hulu original film. So ultimately, if you couldn't tell, I really didn't like this movie. It is a slog to get through. I will give it a little credit again for the things it does right, at least visually, but it sort of wastes Ben Stiller. This is a movie that he should have just stepped right into and had some really good, fun comedic moments, some over-the-top stuff. Instead, it leans too much in the drama and tries to play it low-key, which, I mean, at this time of the year, what do you want from a Ben Stiller? Do you want a Ben Stiller movie where he's dealing with all these dramatic moments, or do you want to see him have some wacky adventures with these crazy kids and then fall in love with them at the end? That's what you wanted, and that's what this movie should have been. Instead, it's sort of a bore to get through. I mean, God, like I said, it drags so much. Oh, my God. how can you take an hour and 44 minutes and make it feel like 3? I'll never know. Maybe there should be awards for that. But I'm going to tell you, even though this is on Hulu and you could watch it, just pass. It's not worth your time. There's no energy to it. You're going to get bored probably a half hour into it and quit. Because, God, I thought about it. I really thought. If it wasn't for this podcast, I would have. See what I've done for you? I'm kind of a hero right now. I just saved you an hour and 44 minutes of your life. Think of the things you could do with that hour and 44 minutes. You could spend time with your loved ones. You can go take your kids out to the park and enjoy some time with them before they get too old. You could be in a room naked with someone who wants to be in a room naked with you and touch each other in fun, interesting, wonderful ways. Just remember, boobies plus privates equals babies. And make sure you all are consensual. But, you could do that. You could learn a new language, or at least you could start learning a new instrument, a musical instrument. You could do anything. Write the great American novel. In that hour and 44 minutes, you could start. But I saved you from having to waste it on this movie. I took the hit for y'all. I will be at my death's bed thinking, my God, I should have done something better with that hour and 44 minutes. Maybe I could have found true love. But yeah, have I emphasized enough not to watch this movie? These streaming services, please, y'all got to start doing a little bit better. If you want everybody to sit and watch this stuff, please make it worth watching at the very least. So that wraps up our talk about Nutcrackers. If you're still listening, then I must have done something right. And if I did, if you could please, again, leave me a review, follow me, subscribe to the show so you don't miss another episode. And again, if you know the quotes and what movies they're from, you get in touch with me on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. Just let me know what movies they are. You can also follow me and all that fun stuff so you can keep up with the show. Now on my next episode, and I know usually at the end of the week I do a streaming surprise. This will still be a surprise, and it's kind of streaming because I'm going to have to watch the movie on a streaming service. But we are going to have our fan winner pick. The person has already let me know what movie I'm going to review. And I'm hesitantly excited, maybe, kind of, to talk about this movie. It is from a while back, but it should be a lot of fun. I know the movie, I saw it, years and years ago. So it could be fun to revisit it and give you my thoughts on that movie. So you definitely want to come back and check that out. And again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to my podcast. I greatly appreciate you. As an audience member, I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, before I leave, I need you to do one thing for me as you're traveling around on this blue and green ball bouncing through the cosmos. I need you to go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.